You want to support Roland Martin Unfiltered? Be sure to join our Bring the Funk fan club. Every dollar that you give to us supports our daily digital show. There's only one daily digital show out here that keeps it black and keep it real as Roland Martin Unfiltered. Support the Roland Martin Unfiltered daily digital show by going to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. You can make this possible. There was discussion on the Senate floor vote about D.C. getting statehood. And if y'all want to hear one of the most absolute racist, bigoted, discriminatory speeches ever, listen to this ass, Senator Tom Cotton of Arkansas, who argues that Wyoming has a much more broad cultural interest to be a state than Washington, D.C. The same Wyoming that has 200,000 fewer people than Washington, D.C. The same Wyoming that is 93% white. He complains that, D.C. will guarantee 2 Democratic senators. Well, how many Republicans are senators in Wyoming? 2. Listen to this racist talk.
Most of Washington was under the control not of the federal government, but of a left-wing politician like Muriel Bowser, who frequently takes the side of rioters against law enforcement. Would you trust Mayor Bowser to keep Washington safe if she were given the powers of a governor? Would you trust Marion Barry? More important, should we risk the safety of our capital on such a gamble? Now, of course, the Democrats will argue that the statehood bill doesn't entirely eliminate federal control of Washington because it preserves a small federal district that encompasses the White House, the Capitol, the Supreme Court, the Library of Congress, the National Mall, and a few other government buildings. What a humbling demotion from the grand federal city that President Washington and Pierre L'Enfant envisioned more than 200 years ago, which they hoped would rival Paris in size and ambition. By contrast, look at this ridiculous map. Look at it. The Democrats propose to turn Washington into little more than a gerrymandered government theme park, surrounded on all sides by a new state, controlled, of course, by the Democrats. The federal government's safety and independence cannot be assured by such a laughable district. Again, look at it. It's got 90 sides. A mere city block, less than 200 yards, separates the White House from the proposed boundaries of a new state, governed at present by a politician who hates the president. The Supreme Court and several congressional office buildings are right at the edge of the map, separated from the new Democratic state by the width of a single city street. In the event of an emergency like the Philadelphia Mutiny of 1783, those narrow boundaries could jeopardize the operations of the federal government. Consider also what's not included in this ridiculous new map of a new Washington, D.C. The headquarters of the Department of Homeland Security would be outside the federal government's control, as would be the headquarters of the FBI and the FCC, which governs all communications.
Now, y'all see that little racist little rant there? Ooh, Muriel Bowser. And what if Marion Barry was the governor? He does know that you've had governors that have gone to prison in states. Rob Blagojevich in Illinois, prison. Governor Ryan, prison. Governor Edwards in Louisiana, prison. In West Virginia, they impeached the entire state Supreme Court. So do you see the nonsense? That, and I'm going to go to you, Derek, first, because you're a Republican. Okay. You're a Republican. That was absolute racist by Tom Cotton.
Well, I would say black people. Oh, we can't trust these black people to govern. Okay.
Oh no.
Can I finish?
Go ahead.
I did not like the comment about my man Marion Barry, okay? Because he is the people's mayor, always has been. He's done a lot for people in D.C., including giving jobs to my wife and a bunch of other friends. But the thing about it is, man, you know, if you look at what they've been talking about D.C. statehood, it's been an issue forever, okay? And according to a Gallup poll 2019, last year, 2/3 of Americans said no to D.C. being a state. And the bigger issue is, you know, D.C. has 700,000 people. Puerto Rico has 3 million people. Where's the outrage for Puerto Rico being a state? And I think it becomes more of a political issue right now.
Wait, hold on.
I think it becomes more of a political issue right now.
Wait a minute.
What?
Hold on.
Man,
I'm going to let you finish, but I want to put a pin in it, and I want that Puerto Rico point.
Yeah. What about it?
How did Puerto Rico become a territory?
I don't know. You tell me. You must have an answer.
Oh, I got an answer. Mark Thompson joins us. Mark or Rob or Teresa, one of y'all.
Mark Thompson?
Now, here's why I'm saying this, because Washington, D.C. is actually within the United States. Puerto Rico actually was a prize that we captured. Mark Thompson, you've gotten arrested a whole lot for statehood. You heard what Derek just said. I'm gonna let Derek finish, but the Puerto Rico point, Mark, explain why that's an illogical point.
Which part do I get to finish, or are you gonna let Mark go?
No. I want Mark to speak on how the Puerto Rico point is made is illogical. Then I'll come back to you to finish. Mark, go ahead.
Well, I want to be sure what he's saying. Is he saying that Puerto Rico is more deserving?
Well, he's saying there are 3 million in Puerto Rico and just 700,000 in D.C., but it's only 500,000 in Wyoming.
Trying to get you to chase a rabbit.
Not what I said.
Mark, go ahead.
That's not what I said.
So here's the thing, and thank you, Roland, and thank you for showing all those clips. Here's the thing about Puerto Rico. Puerto Rico has a right to its own self-determination. And I know at one time, Puerto Ricans voted, they had a choice between independence and statehood. And I think there was a slight majority in favor of independence in terms of being their own country. So, you know, I don't think we should make that decision on behalf of Puerto Rico. If people of Puerto Rico want to be an independent nation or they want to be a state, that's up to them. As far as D.C. statehood is concerned, this is the Washington, D.C. is the only national capital in the world. And we're talking about countries the United States holds responsible for human rights violations and lack of democracy. Even those nations, their national capitals have representation in their national legislature or parliament. It's only D.C. that doesn't. It has always been because of racism. And just to be fair, in 1993, we organized the original Tea Party. This Tea Party, Republican Tea Party that came in under Obama, that's a whole nother thing. We dumped tea on the Capitol steps every Thursday and committed civil disobedience every Thursday for months throughout the summer of 93 to get the first ever vote for D.C. statehood in 1993. The Speaker of the House at that time was Tom Foley. 58 Democrats voted no. And I'm sure that the Democratic Party has to look back on that history and realize what a mistake that was. Because if D.C. had been admitted into the Union in 1993, think about how many things that have happened in the past 27 years that would have been prevented with 2 more Democrats in the Senate with the 51st state. Speaker Pelosi said something very interesting on yesterday, and I'd actually forgotten this. Her father, before there was even a mayor, her father as a member of Congress was the chair of the district committee, which, as you know, Roland, oversaw everything in the District of Columbia for decades. In fact, her father was, his nickname was the mayor of D.C., and he ultimately was the mayor of Baltimore, too. But he oversaw the budget. Congress controlled Washington, D.C. So what Tom Cotton is talking about is absurd. Congress will have control over what is known as the federal enclave or the National Capital Service area, where residents do not live. But the rest of that, would be named after Frederick Douglass. And finally, there would be no taxation without representation, ending that colonial relationship. More people have gone to war and given their lives in the U.S. military than many states per capita in Washington, D.C., and there are more taxes paid per capita than many other states. So it's absurd. It's a miscarriage of justice. And lastly, just let me say that we've got to talk about justice in the fullest sense. So there's justice in policing. Some folk want to do Juneteenth, and that's fine, even though a lot of folk never heard about Juneteenth until last week. But reparations and D.C. statehood have to be a part of that conversation, and we got to stop being afraid to bring it up. We have to stop just pushing issues that we think are acceptable and palatable to white folks and white media only.
All right, Derek, go ahead.
No, Mark, good seeing you. Great points. But I would just ask, what about the size and how the district would have to be reshaped in terms of national security and that kind of thing and protecting it? And then how would it be possible to have, federal agencies like the FBI, FCC, and Homeland Security, which he did point out, outside of district lines? I mean, and Mark, maybe you can even speak to this. Some say that Homeland Security was actually put out of those district lines for this purpose. But I'm just trying to figure out, well, how does it work?
Rob, hold on, wait. Hold on. Rob, here's what I don't understand. There's an FBI office in Houston.
Well, that's not hard to
there are
understand.
federal agencies located.
So that makes it right?
Let me say it again. Hold on. There are federal agencies located in every major city in America. Ain't nobody trying to figure out how do they operate. Hold on, Derek, you can't ask for everybody else stop talking when you talking if you talk when everybody else talking. Rob, go.
This is real simple, Derek. Roland's already explained it, but in any place, anywhere, we have federal buildings, and the federal government still has control. That is made up. They're just trying to use ways to scare people. You know that has nothing to do with anything. So that no control would change, making Washington D.C. a state. Let me just say that it's real interesting listening to Tom Cotton though, and hear him talk about the things that he was mentioning there. You can always know, particularly what my friends on the other side talk about gerrymandering. To even talk about gerrymandering is a concept for at least since the 1980s Republicans have mastered. And they've been doing it for a long time. I'm going to give you one example if you want one, Derek. Paul Weyrich. You can look him up. He's the founder of the conservative movement.
One second. Let Rob finish.
Wait. He is the founder of the whole conservative party movement recently in the last 30 or 40 years. He didn't want everybody to vote. It is on tape. Roland can find it. He said, I want to make sure, because democracies aren't won by those who participate. It's not won by the majority of the people, but those that are able to participate. So the strategy of what they're doing in Kentucky, what they're doing now, what they've been doing for years is figuring out ways to disempower citizens. And so I think that's anti-democratic. And the fact that a party would make that part of their objective just shows you that they don't believe in the people. They just want to preserve their power. And so I don't understand the argument of why a whole state that pays that much in taxes shouldn't have a right to be that territory shouldn't have a right to be a state. And if Puerto Rico wants to, let them join. I'm not against democracy. If they want to come in, let them come in. These are all distractions. They just don't want to give the power to the people, and they should have the power, period. I believe in democracy. I believe in people. I don't know why Republicans don't sometimes.
I want to pull in Teresa right here. Teresa, the reason I find Tom Cotton's comments to be absolutely hilarious. How many states right now have 2 Republicans? Multiple. Mm-hmm. So it's like, oh my God, there will be 2 Democratic senators from a Washington, D.C. state. There are 2 Republicans. He kept going back to Wyoming and how he said how Wyoming has much more working class. I love the little language. It's 93% white. That's what Tom Cotton really is saying. Wyoming is white, D.C. will be black.
So part of that is the other piece that I heard was that Mayor Bowser doesn't like the president, right? And so right there for me, it was kind of like, okay, all right, thank you for your talking points. I love that this whole thing is scripted. But as we kind of talk about what the territory and who is going to pretty much going to be running those areas, I'm in agreement with you, Roland. I do believe that this is another ploy on the Republican Party to say that African Americans, cannot govern, in its totality, this such of a large a state, if there was one. Look what they've done so far. They put Black Lives Matter sprayed in yellow on the streets, and what else would they do? In so many words. So I think, if I'm in agreement, if Puerto Rico wants to become a state, great. I'm sure there'll be people behind it, but it seems like, with their 3 million people that they have, they are very comfortable with, again, this is just seeing it because there hasn't been anything that's been put up, but they seem like they're very comfortable with receiving some of the benefits of being a part of the U.S. So if D.C. has been pushing this for 27 years, it is fine time that, yes, they become a state and they get the representation they need, because there could be more things that could happen that'll be in their benefit. And I think it just needs to be a little bit more viewed as it relates to some of the practices and policies that are happening in a larger scope with other not only just, the seasoned elected officials, but maybe some of the new generation to start taking a look at some of those policies to see what can be done.
Now, here's what I find to be real funny, y'all. Here's the deal. And I just counted. There are 18 states in the union right now with 2 Democratic senators. Derek, there are 22 states with 2 Republican senators. Y'all, I'm going to go through it. Go to my iPad. You'll see it right here. Alaska, 2 Republicans. You see the 2 red lines. You go Arkansas, 2 Republicans. You go Florida, 2 Republicans. Georgia, Idaho, Indiana, Iowa, Kansas, Kentucky, Louisiana. Then we go Mississippi, Missouri. Then I go to Nebraska. Let me go down to North Carolina, North Dakota. Let's go to Oklahoma, South Carolina, South Dakota, Tennessee, Texas. Let me go right on down to and Wyoming. So, Derek, I don't want to hear that bullshit from Tom Cotton. Oh, there are going to be 2 Democratic senators. When right now, out of the 40 of the 50 states, only 10 have split delegations. Sit the hell down.
Look, I live outside of the district right here, man. And so I go back to the issue that I was trying to, the one point I was trying to say before. They can't even protect the borders now. Now you're talking about making it, how many, 96 different borders, 96 different sides? And the other thing is, like, I go back to this too. 2/3 of Americans already said in the Gallup poll that they were against it.
Stop. Hold up, Derek. Who gives a damn? Derek, who gives a damn what the other Americans have to say who aren't paying taxes? Those 2/3 other Americans have representation.
It happen though.
Derek. Those other Americans have representation. So it's real easy when you have a member of Congress who gets to vote. It's real easy when you have 2 U.S. senators to say, oh, no, you shouldn't have it. Again, There are 700,000 citizens in the District of Columbia. 200,000 more than Wyoming. So why in the hell? Wait, let me finish. Why in the hell should Wyoming get 2 U.S. senators as a member of Congress, but D.C. can't?
And Idaho and lots of other states you can name, but go ahead.
I was just going to ask, Don't it won't it have to go through having an amendment for this to happen? Doesn't that have to go? Doesn't have to have a constitutional amendment for this to happen?
Mark Thompson, go right ahead.
It already went to the Supreme Court a few years ago, probably about 15 years ago. And the ruling is that this is a political matter. It is not a judicial matter. You don't need a constitutional amendment or anything. That's already been reviewed. So all of that is just stuff to hold this up. This is, any state can be admitted into the union via a simple majority of the legislature. And to your point about the agencies and the different government buildings, as Roland said, there are federal agencies in every single state in the union, and it has no impact on the running of that state. As a matter of fact, and this was one of the problems in D.C., when a federal agency takes up land in a state, the federal government makes a federal payment to that state to offset the loss of taxes and property for their presence. And so for 200 years, D.C. was not getting even a fair federal payment for the federal presence as other states were. And so this will also correct that injustice. So no, all of those arguments are ridiculous. The real resistance to this, and you heard him mention Marion Barry, Congress never wanted black power in D.C.
Right. And this is bipartisan. I want to just say this point. We got to say this because
two black senators. Let me finish.
Wait, Mark, go ahead.
Two black senators. The fear of both of those senators being Democratic, and who knows what might happen in the future. But even the argument, really, this is 2020. I'm surprised that we're having a conversation about safety and security. That was one of the silly arguments that the founders had and why they moved to D.C. in the first place from Philadelphia and New York, because they didn't want to be besieged by other states. That's over and done with. That's a 200-year-old argument as well. This is 2020.
All right, folks, back to our Roland Martin Unfiltered video in just one moment. All right, fam, the folks at Ceek.com, founded by Mary Spews, a sister, of course. She is the inventor, the creator of these devices, this virtual reality headset right here. You saw it in the video there. And also the 360-degree 4D headphones. You can actually get these with a discount because they partner with us at Roland Martin Unfiltered. Right here, here's the code, RMVIP2020, RMVIP2020. First of all, folks, the headsets are phenomenal. The headphones are absolutely phenomenal. And of course, the VR headset is great because you just pop your phone, put it into the device, and then you can actually see video in virtual reality. So it's real cool. Go to Ceek.com, 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 and use the promo code RMVIP2020.